Ladies, gentlemen, and haradrim of all ages, as we move forward in our time with Diablo 4, there is one ever-present question every time the game is updated. Has anything really changed? Anything of value? Should I be thinking about my class any differently, or any of the other classes handling differently too? And now that we've had some time to breathe from the recent patch 1.1.1, and even the slight changes we had in 1.1.2 as well, I thought it was a good time to go over a nice little collection, simply talking over what the best build is for each and every class in Diablo 4 right now, the current meta, so to say, if you are someone who cares about that as a concept. We'll go through classes in alphabetical order, so there's no overt importance to that part, and generally I'll talk about how close the best build is to the second or third best too if there are relevant options.
There's a lot of them!
Starting off then, let's dive in with Barbarian. Currently it seems Whirlwind is still the best at the moment, its speed clears incredibly well, it is decent at pushing higher tier nightmare dungeons as well, and it's still good enough at single target damage to get a decent kill time on Uber Lilith in Season 1, so it's solid for sure. Recently there has been a double swing build that's been popping up. I've heard some people say that it is actually better for specifically pushing, but not for anything else. And the Hammer of the Ancients build also popped back up this week after some interactions with the Barber Heart were fixed that actually made it work far better with that build to make it relevantly strong again. Currently though, the strongest though overall is still Whirlwind. 3 shouts to manage Fury generation, give you Berserk, and give you damage reduction. Whirlwind itself, and in a perfectly itemized set, you don't even need a basic skill anymore, which lets you use Ground Stomp, which is awesome all on its own. It just comes together to make such a simple build to actually play that is still pretty enjoyable to interact with, just being a Beyblade of blood spraying around you as you carve through an entire room at full speed. It may not be that complex to actually use, but it is still extremely effective. Honestly, if the developers really do want to change this, they need to full-on add legendaries to Barbarian. The simplest way to explain why Whirlwind as a build is as dominant as an option as it is, and how it always was going to be this way, is to look at the amount of legendaries that affect Whirlwind, and not really anything else as far as core skills. 4 aspects and 1 unique that affect Whirlwind. That is nuts. The other core skills get 1, maybe 2 at most, and while most of these aren't even used in top-end Whirlwind builds, the fact that it has this many options is what has made it so good, because you can choose the very best of what affects the skill, rather than just having to make do with whatever there actually is in the game that could even be slightly useful. Then second up today we have the Druid, and Druid's best build is pretty solidly the Werewolf Tornado build. This thing just clobbers everything. It's great at speed clearing, it's great at pushing higher tier nightmare dungeons, and it's the fastest non-bugged kill that Druid has on Uber Lilith in Season 1 as well. The thing with Druid is there is so much build variety for the class that you can really focus in on different types of content, so that one build will just be the best at one specific thing and garbages everything else. But Werewolf Tornado specifically is just so good at so many different things, it's hard not to pick it as number 1. For speed farming, you could go with something like Lightning Shred that just clears out a place super quickly, but then it struggles at higher tier content. For specifically Nightmare Dungeon pushing, you could go with the Bulwark build, which a lot of people still think is a bug, though it is just the superior choice for that one specific type of content as long as it's in the game. But Werewolf Tornado is still second or third in both of those, while being our best single target damage option as well, which is notably important anytime you come across a boss. The build has changed a fair bit. It seems even to this point that the Earthen Might key passive doesn't work well with the Barber Heart, so instead you run Perfect Storm as a key passive, just for a pure damage increase, not really a loss, especially when you consider the massive gain the Barber gives you. The build is just simply incomparable when looking at them from an overall power standpoint. The synergies in it are silly, the required gear to make it work properly is hefty as hell, but that is just sort of how Druid works, honestly. There are so many viable, really strong endgame builds, but aside from basically just one of them, which is Pulverize, the rest of them all require such high level, specifically affixed gear to actually work properly, and this is just the one that works the best overall, even considering that. Third up then, let's talk about the Necromancer. You know where this is going. It's Bone Spear. It's been Bone Spear for ages, and it just continues to get better and better over time somehow. This is the best Necromancer leveling build. It is the first endgame build that you can properly have come online, as it requires the least gear to function at its base level, and despite all of that, it also scales harder to reach a higher potential than any other Necromancer build can too. It is just perfect in every single way. Don't get me wrong, the Shadow Mist builds are defensively safer. They are stronger at specifically surviving, but as far as pure damage output, Bone Spear is miles above it. It's got crazy speed clear efficiency. It is absolutely capable of doing super high tier nightmare dungeons, even if it is the less safe option for doing that, and it is the build responsible for the fastest Uber Lilith clear of any class currently in Season 1, and just overall, an absolutely ridiculous performance on that one too, and that's because it just got stronger in Season 1. It just doesn't stop getting stronger. The Barber Heart stacks with this one ridiculously as well, as it tends to be more focused shots of damage rather than full area of effect. It fires out a cone really, and Barber turns that cone into a massive burst of damage. Not to mention the Auto Corpse skill Malignant Heart that makes corpse tendrils just pull enemies towards you constantly, which then makes the Barber Heart work even better and lets you hit even even more enemies with every cast of Bone Spear 2, which is just absolutely nuts. The other heart slot is a bit more free, but those two as a combo with this build are just absolutely silly, and honestly they're just as strong in pretty much every other Necromancer build, but in this particular one, it just makes what was already the strongest even stronger.
Just keeps getting better and better.
Fourth then today, let's go over Rogue and their unstoppable lust for twisting blades. This build is just unstoppably good. There are a number of variations on it, but twisting blades is just at the top of everything when it comes to Rogue. Fastest speed clearing, as it has tons of movement abilities, high base player movement in the first place, and absolutely minimal setup on the damage output, which lets it just run through places with reckless abandon, firing off abilities, and it just both looks cool and is honestly very silly. In high tier dungeons, twisting blades is still the way to go, partially because of the high movement and low setup, letting you be particularly evasive while still incredibly damaging, and then for Uber Lilith, it is a poison variation of twisting blades that does the best things that rogues can do there. So yeah, overall, it's basically just twisting blades through and through, and that's really hard to argue against. That said, there are a number of other really solid, powerful rogue builds, most notably the dual core build that uses both flurry and rapid fire, and that build actually does come a little bit close to twisting blades in a number of areas, but it requires a bit of setup, is a little bit less mobile, so it still falls a bit short of twisting blades' proper high-end potential, to put it simply. Finally then is the Sorcerer, which is an incredibly interesting as far as the position that it's in right now, because it's the class that the developers have most emphasized putting work into changing, getting the most recent changes and the most effective changes as well. That said, the best build for Sorcerer currently is still actually Ice Shards in Season 1, even after patch 1.1.1. This is a build that was basically built for the Barber Heart to reach maximum effectiveness. It does most of its damage from long range and is basically a single target ice machine gun, but thanks to the Barber Heart, it becomes AoE from the pops of single enemies dying. It has near infinite mana outside of single target too, which makes it even better for those situations. Sorcerer is in a weird position though still, even after all the buffs, where even the strongest build sort of had the caveat of can still be one-shot by a number of random different enemy types, but it actually has a number of strong builds offensively speaking that can stand up to the hardest content in the game too. Ice Shards is just the king of doing it from a safe distance by using specific malignant hearts to thrive in Season 1. However, after the changes in patch 1.1.1, there is a new challenger approaching, and I cannot possibly overstate how close it is in actual power to Ice Shards, and that is Chain Lightning. With the changes made to how this and some legendaries work around it in 1.1.1, Chain Lightning has totally taken off as a build. Its damage is incredibly potent, but arguably more relevant than that is the amount of stuns the build gets. Ice Shards does get freezes, but they take work to achieve. Chain Lightning just sort of passively stuns entire rooms of enemies while killing them at a similar pace to what Ice Shards does. It may be a touch offensively weaker, but the defensive strength of permanent stuns is inarguable, really, which is why I felt the need to bring this up here. Ice Shards is still the best build, but only by a little bit over Chain Lightning. And that's it for today then, everyone. A roundup of the current best build for every single class in Diablo 4 as of patch 1.1.2, which is the update we're currently on. This will likely stay the same until the next time that there is a notable balanced patch, so keep your eyes out for that if it happens, but for now this is the best of the best currently. I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown, and I hope it has helped you learn just a little bit more about how classes other than your own are functioning at a high level within the game, or even give you ideas if you want to try out a different build. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.